800 men and women sit 2 by 2 at row upon row of tables in an enormous room. Some wear headphones and rock quietly to the beat. Others laugh and talk softly with their partner at the table. All of them have hands that move so quickly it's hard to actually see what they're doing, but the finished cigars stacking up beside them make it obvious. Each pair is producing at least 250 Drew Estate cigars each day. Experienced teams produce 400 to 450 daily. One person at each table is the buncher binder. His or her job is to select the right number of each leaf to make the blend they're producing. He'll then bind these leaves together, either rolling them by hand into the binder leaf or by using a Lieberman machine, a clever device that rolls the leaves into the binder leaf with just the pull of a lever. His partner applies the wrapper. With a few deft movements, he or she turns a bundle of leaves into a finished product, perhaps into the cigar you're smoking right now. They work in unison and are paid according to the number of cigars they produce as a team. Visit the estate, and the difference between Drew Estate and other manufacturers in the city is incredibly and breathtakingly obvious. During our recent trip to Nicaragua, Tony, Joe, and myself were privileged enough to make just such a visit, enjoying a private tour with Henry Andres Pineda Torres, who heads up Drew Estate's safari tours. We'd already spent days touring Perdomo, where efficiency and quality were the hallmarks of a massive operation that spanned the entire cigar-making process, from seed selection to shipping final product. I suppose we were expecting something similar when we arrived at Drew Estate, so we were astounded and delighted to find something wholly different. Drew Estate is the most scenic and arguably the most beautiful manufacturing facility in the city. A series of Spanish estate homes, linked by balconies, courtyards, and gardens, house the offices at the top of a mountain's crest. An enormous veranda off the smoking lounge opens onto an unrivaled panoramic view of the valley. Lush green farms stretch to the horizon. Beauty and art are company values, and it's hard to imagine a more appealing place to report to work. The grounds are covered with sculpted greenery. There's a bear by the front gate. A pair of dirty rats wait by the entrance to the warehouse. Astounding murals, some 2 stories high and the width of a building, are everywhere. The artwork inspires creative energy, and creativity is a critical part of Drew Estate's success, from their innovative cigar flavors to their standout branding and marketing campaigns. But creating a gorgeous place to work is just a tiny part of the Drew Estate difference. Drew invests heavily in his staff in other ways. Employees can apply for no-interest company loans to buy houses, cars, and other family needs to improve their lives. The company has paid for family funerals and new roofs. It provides more time off than its competitors, too. When we arrived for our tour, staff members were just returning from a volunteer activity, helping to build a house in the community. In fact, the company has helped to develop an entire section of the city, even building a bridge across the river to shorten the commute across town. They've also built an on-site clinic to provide free healthcare to their employees and their employees' children. It's little wonder that the company is seeing rapid growth. Employees are grateful and dedicated. In just the last year, the number of cigars produced each day at their facility has grown from 90,000 to 120,000. They're well on their way to reaching their goal of 150,000 by the beginning of next year. Henry kicked off our tour by ushering us into a lounge that rivals the most luxurious of elite gentlemen's clubs, with grand leather sofas and chairs and a massive fireplace. He introduced us to Drew's father, who was on vacation, enjoying the quiet comforts of a gorgeous Nicaraguan afternoon. Together they showed us to the bar and kitchen, stocked with drinks and snacks. But we demurred, and instead reached for cigars from the huge selection Henry offered us. He was an extremely gracious host, and later as we toured the facilities, he just gave us a crooked grin as we fought the day's winds to light and smoke our cigars, even in the many areas that were clearly marked "no smoking." Only 2,000 employees work for the company, Henry told us. It's a comparatively small number, but they concentrate their entire staff on final production. They don't grow any of their own tobacco. Instead, the company chooses to keep their options open, selecting the finest tobaccos from around the world to produce their cigars. They contract with farmers for a farm's entire crop, which keeps their costs down and streamlines sales for the farmer. Henry says it's a win-win. After purchase, Drew Estate sorts, selects, ferments, and ages the leaves themselves to maintain the consistency of their blends. The company stocks enough leaf to continue to produce their signature cigars for 3 years, protecting themselves from crop failure and other risk. We didn't need to wonder if what Henry was telling us were true, because Henry proved it, leading us into an Amazon-sized warehouse filled to capacity from floor to ceiling with bundled leaves from around the world. Other, even more massive buildings were filled with the thick aroma of fermentation. We stepped inside one to find hundreds of pilones doing their work, heating to temperatures just over 100 degrees Fahrenheit before being turned, watered, and allowed to heat again to create the rich, deep flavors characteristic of Drew's brands. Each pilones holds 2,000 to 2,500 leaves, so we were witnessing the future of the company in those rooms. Or were we? We couldn't help but notice that Henry never showed us the rooms where the flavored cigars are made. The tobacs and acids were conspicuously absent. Of course, we knew that the flavorings and the process by which the flavors are infused into the cigars are closely held corporate secrets. So naturally, Tony spent the tour watching and waiting for his chance to sneak into their flavored production rooms. You can imagine his disappointment when his efforts ended at a heavy metal door with a bioscan fingerprint lock. While most of Drew Estate's facility is bright, welcoming, and open to visitors, the flavored cigar rooms are decidedly not. Company representatives won't even discuss what goes on behind those doors. My guess is most don't actually know. We did find out, though, that anything with flavoring is kept separate from the more traditional cigars throughout the entire production process. They're even aged and boxed in their own rooms, so that the aromas never mingle with their other lines. Also tucked away in a separate room are the most experienced rollers, who are making the Liga and Unico cigars. These rollers enjoy the benefits of their skill, higher pay, and a separate workroom that's cooled for their comfort. Tony barely managed to survive his disappointment over his failed corporate espionage attempt, but it helped that he was able to pry out of Henry a few things he shouldn't have, like the fact that there are super secret, possibly never to be released, or someday to be released, or maybe limited release, Unico series cigars sitting in the aging rooms, totally hush-hush. Tony was buoyed enough by that success to try to steal a few of the event-only Unico A cigars while we toured the shipping facility, but alas, Henry caught up with him. With so many honored guests like Tony touring Drew Estate these days, it's probably a very good thing that the company engages in a particularly unique annual good luck ritual. December 16th each year, before the company closes for the holidays, every employee gathers at a statue of the Holy Virgin. Together they pray for the safety of every employee, for good fortune to bless all their families, and for the company to continue to grow and nurture the community. After trying to keep us in line for several hours, I suspect that Henry was relieved to see our tour come to an end, but ever the gracious host, instead of pushing us out, he offered us a lift back into town. We laughed with him as we boarded the air-conditioned bus that the company purchased specifically for the comfort of their safari tour guests. The bus meets guests in Managua and transports them between the estate and guest housing, which the company also provides. We were cool and comfortable for a few precious minutes before we stepped off into the heat and hustle of Esteli's Old City Shopping Center. As we walked through the shops, I kept thinking about the end of Henry's story about the company's ritual. He had confided that the tradition of praying to the Virgin had begun to ease the minds of the estate's employees, many of whom had become convinced that Jonathan Drew had made a deal with the devil for his success. Perhaps he did. Yet I still feel good knowing that every time I smoke one of their delicious coffee-flavored tobacco cigars, I'm contributing in some small way to someone's new roof or maybe a child's vaccination. I just feel so virtuous. I guess I may also have to pick up an undercrown, Liga or Nica Rustica. There's just so much more good for me to do.